I couldn't stop shivering. The wind coming off the water cut right through my army-issue jacket like it wasn't even there. 3 hours into my shift at the perimeter of this empty fishing village, and I couldn't feel my fingers anymore. Didn't help that I was stuck staring at those damn statues. The village had them everywhere. A stone fisherman forever casting his line toward the gray sea. A woman frozen mid-step with a basket of something. 2 children playing some game I didn't recognize. All carved from the same dark gray stone. All looking way too real. I stomped my feet to get some feeling back and checked my watch. 20 minutes till Rodriguez showed up for the shift change. 20 more minutes of those statues. The weird part wasn't how lifelike they were, though that was pretty unsettling. It was how they were positioned, scattered through the village like they'd been actual people going about their day when somebody hit pause. No pedestals, no plaques explaining who made them. Just stone people mixed in with the empty houses. I turned my back on them to scan the perimeter again. That's when the feeling hit me, like somebody was watching. I spun around fast, but it was just the statues, same positions, same blank stone eyes. Getting jumpy there, Private Graham? I nearly jumped out of my skin. Sergeant Rodriguez had come up behind me, moving quiet despite his size. "Just cold, Sergeant," I said, trying to sound normal. Rodriguez nodded, scanning the village with practiced eyes. "Anything to report?" "No, sir, all quiet." He checked his watch. "You're off early. Go warm up." I hesitated, then figured what the hell. "Sergeant, you ever feel like those statues are watching you?" I expected him to chew me out for being stupid. Instead, he laughed. "You too? Morales has been going on about those things since we got here. Swears they move when nobody's looking." "Move?" That wasn't what I meant. "Yeah." Says he's positive that fisherman statue was facing a different direction yesterday. Told him he's been in Iceland too long. Rodriguez shook his head. "These statues are creepy, I'll give you that. But they're just stone." I nodded and handed over the logbook. "Yes, sir." "Get some rest, Graham. We're doing another sweep of the village tomorrow." I headed back toward our temporary barracks, an old community center we'd converted. The heat hit me like a wall when I walked in. Donnie Banks was dealing cards at a folding table, Edward Cross sitting across from him. "Look who survived the statues," Donnie said, grinning. "Want in?" "Yeah." I pulled up a chair. "What are we playing?" 5-card draw. Loser takes next trash duty." Cross gathered the cards for a fresh deal. I shrugged out of my jacket. "You hear Morales thinks the statues are moving?" Donnie's head snapped up. "No joke?" I knew something was off about this place. Cross rolled his eyes. "Here we go." "I'm serious," Donnie said, leaning forward. "Nobody's explained why these people left so suddenly. All their stuff is still in the houses. Clothes in closets, food in pantries. Who leaves like that?" People evacuating a war zone," Cross said, dealing the cards. "This whole area was cleared when NATO started using the harbor." "In the middle of dinner?" Donnie pressed. "There's plates still on tables in some houses, half-eaten meals." I picked up my cards. Garbage hand. Maybe the evacuation order came suddenly. Or maybe, Donnie lowered his voice, something else happened here. Cross tossed a chip into the center. "Like what, exactly? Sea monsters? Aliens?" "I don't know, but it wasn't normal." Donnie matched the bet. "And those statues weren't made by any artist." I studied Donnie's face. He wasn't the type for ghost stories. "What makes you say that?" "Look at them closely next time. There's no tool marks, no seams. It's like they were people that just turned to stone." "Now you sound like Morales," I said. Cross laughed. You've been reading too many of those paperbacks from home." We played cards for another hour. Donnie kept bringing up the village, how the boats were still tied up at the docks, how nobody from the area would talk about what happened here. Cross kept shooting him down with logical explanations. I lost $20 and earned myself trash duty for the next week. Around midnight, we turned in. The community center was one big room with cots lined up against the walls. I was almost asleep when I heard someone moving around. I cracked one eye open and saw Donnie pulling on his jacket. "Where you going?" I whispered. He jumped a little. "Heard something outside near the statues. Probably just Rodriguez doing rounds." "No, it was different. I'm gonna check it out." "Want me to come?" He shook his head. "Nah, just taking a quick look. Be right back." I should have gone with him. That's what keeps eating at me. I just rolled over and went back to sleep. Morning came with Rodriguez shouting for roll call. We lined up outside, stomping our feet against the cold. That's when I noticed the empty spot in line. "Where's Banks?" Rodriguez demanded. We all looked around. No sign of Donnie. "He went outside last night," I said. "Said he heard something near the statues." Rodriguez's face hardened. "When?" "Around midnight." "And he didn't come back?" I shook my head. My stomach felt like lead. "Cross, Weber. Check the barracks thoroughly," Rodriguez ordered. "Graham, Morales, Chandler, you're with me. We're checking the village." We spent all morning searching. Donnie's footprints led from the barracks toward the center of the village, then disappeared on the stone street. No blood, no signs of struggle, no Donnie. By afternoon, the whole unit was searching. We checked every building, every alley, the shoreline, the docks. Nothing. "Could he have taken one of the boats?" someone asked. "In the middle of the night, in this weather?" Rodriguez shook his head. "Keep looking." As the day wore on, that sick feeling in my gut got worse. I found myself walking back to where I'd been on guard duty, staring at those statues again. The fisherman, the woman with the basket, the children. Wait. I moved closer to the statues, counting them. Yesterday there were 3 children playing. Today there were 4. I stepped back, heart pounding. The new one, a boy about 10, had his arm outstretched toward the others, like he was trying to join their game. The statue's face was twisted in an expression I couldn't quite read. Fear? Surprise? I looked at the stone hand reaching out. On the wrist was a thin cord bracelet, just like the one Donnie always wore, the one his little sister had made him before deployment. I couldn't breathe. I backed away, then turned and ran toward where Rodriguez was coordinating the search. I don't know if anyone will believe me, but I know what I saw. And I know the statues in this village aren't just statues. Somehow, they know exactly what happened to Donnie Banks. I ran outside looking for someone, anyone. I spotted Rodriguez about 100 yards away, talking to Chandler. "Sergeant Rodriguez," I yelled, waving my arms. "I found something." Rodriguez looked annoyed as he walked over. "What is it, Graham? You find Banks?" "Sir, you need to see this. In the cottage." I led him inside and pointed at the statue. "This wasn't here yesterday, sir. I checked this place myself." Rodriguez walked around it, studying it with narrowed eyes. "Looks like a standard statue to me, like all the others in this village." "But, sir, it looks like Banks. And it wasn't here before." Rodriguez glanced at me like I was wasting his time. "It's a coincidence, Graham. These statues are all over this damn village." He tapped the statue's shoulder. "Just stone. Banks probably went exploring somewhere. Maybe took a boat out. In the middle of the night, without telling anyone. And what about the bracelet I saw on that other statue? My voice was getting louder. I couldn't help it. Look, Graham, Rodriguez said. I get that you're worried about your friend. We all are. But seeing his face in statues isn't helping us find him. I ran outside looking for someone, anyone. I spotted Rodriguez about 100 yards away, talking to Chandler. Sergeant Rodriguez, I yelled, waving my arms. I found something. Rodriguez looked annoyed as he walked over. What is it, Graham? You find Banks? Sir, you need to see this, in the cottage. I led him inside and pointed at the statue. This wasn't here yesterday, sir. I checked this place myself. Rodriguez walked around it, studying it with narrowed eyes. Looks like a standard statue to me, like all the others in this village. But, sir, it looks like Banks. And it wasn't here before. Rodriguez glanced at me like I was wasting his time. It's a coincidence, Graham. These statues are all over this damn village. He tapped the statue's shoulder. Just stone. Banks probably went exploring somewhere. Maybe took a boat out. In the middle of the night, without telling anyone. And what about the bracelet I saw on that other statue? My voice was getting louder. I couldn't help it. Look, Graham, Rodriguez said. I get that you're worried about your friend. We all are. But seeing his face in statues isn't helping us find him. Sir, I'm telling you. That's enough. Rodriguez cut me off. We've got a missing soldier. I don't have time for ghost stories. Everyone back to regular duties. We'll continue searching the outer areas tomorrow. He walked out, leaving me alone with the statue. I stared at it for a long time. The face looked scared, like Donnie had seen something coming. We spent the rest of the day on our assigned tasks. I got stuck inventorying supplies, which was probably Rodriguez's way of keeping me busy and out of trouble. By evening, there was still no sign of Donnie. After dinner, I found Cross sitting alone outside the barracks. He was smoking, something he only did when stressed. You see that statue? I asked, sitting next to him. Cross nodded. Yeah, I saw it. He took a long drag. Weird shit. Rodriguez thinks I'm losing it. You're not losing it. Cross flicked his cigarette. That statue does look like Banks, and I don't remember seeing it there before either. I stared at him. You believe me? I don't know what to believe. He looked around at the dark village. But something's off about this place. Those statues. He paused. Sometimes I feel like they're watching us too. I knew it. Morales said the same thing. Yeah, well, don't tell Rodriguez I said that. Cross stood up and stretched. Look, until we figure out what's going on, we should stick together. No solo patrols, no wandering off alone. Agreed. I'm on night watch with Weber in an hour. You got morning shift? I nodded. 6 to noon, Eastern Perimeter again. I'll make sure whoever relieves me stays with you. Cross zipped up his jacket. Don't go anywhere alone, Graham, not even to take a piss. We headed back inside to get ready for the night. Cross grabbed his gear and started toward the door for his shift. I was about to climb into my bunk when I noticed him stop near one of the statues just outside our barracks. It was of an old man, hunched over slightly. I walked out to see what he was doing. Cross had his hand on the statue's arm, running his fingers along the surface. What are you doing? I asked. Cross frowned. Feel this. He grabbed my hand and placed it on the statue's shoulder. The stone wasn't cold like I expected. It felt warm, almost like body temperature. That normal for stone in below freezing weather? Cross asked. I pulled my hand back. No, it's not. Yeah. Cross adjusted his rifle strap. That's what I thought too. He headed off to his post, leaving me staring at the statue. The old man's eyes seemed to follow me as I backed away. I didn't sleep much that night. I woke up to someone shaking me, hard. "Graham, get up." It was Morales, his face tight with panic. I sat up fast, blinking away sleep. "What's going on?" "Cross didn't come back from night patrol." My stomach dropped. Not again. I swung my legs off the bed and grabbed my boots. When was he supposed to check in? "Oh, 600. It's almost 7 now." The barracks buzzed with voices, everyone talking at once. Rodriguez stood by the door, barking orders into his radio. His face looked carved from stone. I laced my boots with fingers that wouldn't work right, my mind racing to the worst places. "They've been searching for an hour," Morales said. "Rodriguez wants everyone out there now." I grabbed my jacket and followed him out. The morning was gray and cold, fog hanging low over the village. Teams were already spreading out, calling Cross's name. The sound echoed between empty houses. "Where was he patrolling?" I asked. "Western edge, near the docks." I headed that way without waiting for orders. My boots crunched on frozen gravel as I jogged past the empty market square. The statues stood silent, watching. I counted them automatically as I passed. Something felt off, but I didn't stop to figure it out. The docks were empty except for Weber, who was checking between some storage sheds. "Find anything?" I called. He shook his head. "Nothing. No footprints even. It's like he vanished." I moved past him toward the water's edge. The tide was out, revealing wet, black rocks below the wooden walkway. I scanned the shoreline, then turned back toward the village. That's when I saw it. A statue I hadn't noticed before stood at the end of the dock. A soldier crouched with his rifle raised, looking over his shoulder. The face was frozen in an expression I recognized instantly. The same look Cross gave me last night when we felt the warm statue. Pure terror. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no." I walked closer, my legs moving without me telling them to. The statue was perfect, down to the small scar above his eyebrow that Cross got in basic. Even the uniform details were exact. His dog tags hung from the stone neck. My stomach clenched so hard I thought I might throw up. "Weber," I yelled. "Over here." Weber jogged up, breathing hard. "What did you find?" "Look at this statue." He frowned. "Yeah? What about it?" "It's Cross." Weber stared at me like I'd lost my mind. "It's a statue, Graham. Look at the face, the scar above his eye. That's Cross's scar. And this wasn't here yesterday." Weber stepped closer, studying the statue. I saw doubt cross his face. "That's weird," he admitted. "It does look like him. We need to tell Rodriguez." I turned and ran back toward the village center, not checking if Weber was following. Rodriguez was standing near the barracks, talking with Chandler. "Sergeant Rodriguez," I called out, skidding to a stop in front of him. His face hardened when he saw me. "Graham, report." "I found something at the docks, a statue. It wasn't there yesterday, and it looks exactly like Cross." Rodriguez's jaw tightened. "Show me." I led him back to the docks with Weber and Chandler following. When we reached the statue, Rodriguez circled it slowly, his face unreadable. "This is just like what happened with Banks," I said. "First they disappear, then there's a new statue that looks just like them." "That's quite a theory, Private," Rodriguez said, his voice flat. "It's not a theory. It's what's happening. Look at it. That's Cross's face." Rodriguez turned to me. "We're calling an emergency meeting. Back to the barracks now." 20 minutes later, the entire unit was crammed into the mess hall. Everyone looked tense, voices low and worried. Rodriguez stood at the front, waiting until the room fell silent. "As you all know, Private Cross is missing," he said. "This is the second disappearance in 3 days. I want to hear theories." Before anyone could speak, I stood up. "I know what's happening, Sergeant." Rodriguez nodded for me to continue. I took a deep breath. "The statues are connected to the disappearances. Both Banks and Cross touched statues before they vanished. Banks went out to check on something near the statues the night before he disappeared. Cross and I discovered yesterday that one of the statues was warm to the touch. Now they're both gone, and there are new statues that look exactly like them." A few laughs broke out across the room. Someone whispered ghost stories, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'm serious," I said, my voice rising. "The statues move when we're not looking. They change. And now I think they're taking people." More laughter. Rodriguez held up his hand, and the room went quiet. "Anyone else?" he asked. I scanned the faces around me. Most guys were smirking or shaking their heads, but Weber looked troubled, and Chandler was staring at the table, deep in thought. "Sergeant," Chandler said finally, "Graham might be onto something. I've been keeping count of the statues since we arrived. The numbers don't add up." Rodriguez sighed. "Listen up. I understand we're all on edge. 2 men missing is serious. But let's stick to rational explanations. The most likely scenario is desertion." Desertion? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Cross wouldn't desert, neither would Banks. "It happens," Rodriguez said firmly. "Isolated posting, harsh conditions, men crack. But the statues—" "Enough about the statues, Private." Rodriguez's voice cut like a knife. "This discussion is over. We have a mission to complete. We'll report the disappearances up the chain, but in the meantime, we continue as ordered." Dismissed. Everyone filed out. I stood there, stunned. Chandler caught my eye and gave me a slight nod before leaving. Rodriguez approached me after everyone left. "Graham, you're on northern perimeter tonight. Weber will be your patrol partner. No one goes anywhere alone from now on." "Yes, Sergeant." He hesitated, then added, "Keep your head on straight, Graham. We need everyone focused." I had 4 hours before my patrol shift started. I went back to my bunk and pulled out my journal, something I'd been keeping since we arrived at this place. I flipped through pages of daily observations and patrol notes until I found my entry from 2 days ago. I'd drawn a rough map of the village marking where each statue stood. Now I compared it to what I'd seen this morning. Something had been bothering me during my run to the docks, and now I realized what it was. 3 of the statues in the market square had shifted position, not by much, just slight turns or a step in a different direction, but enough that I noticed subconsciously. I wrote in my journal, October 15th, 2 men missing now. Cross disappeared on night patrol. Found statue at docks that looks exactly like him. No one believes me except maybe Chandler and Weber. Rodriguez says it's desertion. The statues are moving. The woman with the basket is now facing east instead of south. The old man's statue has moved closer to the well. The fisherman statue has turned to face the barracks. I closed the journal and decided to count them all before my shift. I needed to know exactly what we were dealing with. The village was quiet as I walked through it, making notes on a piece of paper. I counted methodically, checking every corner, every alley. When I finished, I stopped and double-checked my count. 23 statues. I knew for certain there had been 21 when we arrived 3 weeks ago. I'd counted them our first day here. 2 new statues, 2 missing men. It wasn't a coincidence. I tucked my notes away and headed back to prepare for night patrol, wondering what Weber would say when I told him. I met Weber outside the barracks at 11 that night. The wind was brutal, cutting right through my jacket. Weber nodded at me, checking his rifle. "You ready?" he asked. "Yeah. Listen, we need to be careful out there." He laughed. "What, you worried about the killer statues?" I didn't smile back. "I'm serious, Weber. 2 guys are gone. Both of them touched statues before they disappeared." "Come on, man. Rodriguez is right. They probably just took off." We started walking toward the northern edge of the village. Our boots crunched on the frozen ground. The village was dead quiet, except for the wind. The beam from my flashlight bounced off empty windows and abandoned doorways. "Banks and Cross wouldn't desert," I said. "You know that." Weber shrugged. "People do weird shit sometimes." I stopped walking. "Look, just promise me you won't touch any of the statues, okay?" "Whatever makes you feel better." He rolled his eyes, but nodded. We continued our patrol route, checking between buildings and along the perimeter fence. Everything looked normal for the first hour. Just empty houses and the occasional flicker of our shadows against walls. "So what's your theory?" Weber asked after a while. "The statues eat people." "I don't know, but I think they're changing somehow. Moving." "Right, the magical moving statues." He snorted. "Next, you'll tell me they dance when we're not looking." I was about to answer when my flashlight beam caught something about 50 yards ahead. An old man's statue stood near a small shed. I froze. "What's wrong?" Weber asked. "That statue. It wasn't facing this way before." Weber squinted through the darkness. "How would you know?" "Because I counted them all this afternoon. That one was facing the ocean." My voice sounded tight, even to me. "Now it's facing us." Weber laughed, but it sounded forced. "Bullshit, you're just trying to freak me out." I raised my rifle and aimed the attached flashlight at the statue. The beam illuminated its weathered stone face. The old man figure was hunched slightly, one arm extended like it was reaching for something. "I'm not kidding, Weber. That thing has moved." Weber looked at me, then back at the statue. "You know what? I'm gonna prove you're seeing things." He started walking toward the statue. "Weber, don't." I grabbed for his sleeve, but he shrugged me off. "Relax, Graham. It's just a piece of rock." I followed a few steps behind, my rifle still raised. "Just stay away from it, please." Weber ignored me. He walked right up to the statue and turned back to me with a smirk. "See? Just a statue. Get back here. Now." My heart was hammering against my ribs. "You need to chill out." Weber turned to the statue. "This thing isn't moving anywhere." Then he reached out and put his hand on the statue's extended arm. "Don't touch it," I shouted. Too late. Weber's hand made contact with the stone. For a second, nothing happened. Then the statue's fingers curled around his wrist. "What the—" Weber tried to pull away. "It's got me." I watched in horror as a gray color spread from where the statue gripped him. The grayness crept up Weber's arm like frost spreading across glass. "Help me!" Weber screamed, his voice high with panic. He kept pulling, but his feet seemed rooted to the ground now. The gray stone texture crawled up past his elbow, then his shoulder. Weber's scream cut off halfway as it reached his throat. His face froze in a look of absolute terror, his mouth still open, but no sound coming out. I stood there, paralyzed, as Weber turned completely to stone. The whole thing took maybe 15 seconds. When it was over, there was just another statue where Weber had been standing. It looked exactly like him, down to the terror in his eyes. "Jesus Christ," I whispered. I raised my rifle and fired 3 shots at the old man's statue. The bullets hit with dull thuds. chipping small pieces off its surface but doing nothing else. The statue didn't react. It just stood there, still gripping what used to be Weber. I took a step back, then another. From the corner of my eye, I noticed something else. Other statues in the distance were turning their heads slightly, just barely moving. But moving. I ran, dropped my flashlight and just ran, not looking back. My lungs burned from the cold air as I sprinted all the way back to the barracks. I slammed through the door, gasping for breath. 7 faces turned toward me. Some guys were playing cards, others cleaning weapons or writing letters. Rodriguez was checking something on a clipboard. "The statues," I shouted. "They're alive. They got Weber." Everyone stared at me. Nobody moved. "They turned him to stone." I was still trying to catch my breath. Right in front of me, he touched one and it grabbed him, turned his whole body to stone. Rodriguez put down his clipboard and walked over to me. "Graham, calm down, take a breath. I'm telling you, the statue grabbed him. He's dead." My voice cracked. "Weber's dead." "Where's Weber now?" Rodriguez asked, his voice low and steady like he was talking to a child. "Out there, by the shed on the north side. He's a statue now." A couple guys exchanged looks. I heard someone mutter something about me losing it. "Graham, you need to sit down." Rodriguez put his hand on my shoulder. "You're not making sense. You're exhausted and stressed out." I shook his hand off. "I know what I saw. The statues are killing people. First Banks, then Cross, now Weber." "Private, that's enough." Rodriguez's voice hardened. "You're hallucinating. We'll get you checked out, but I need you to calm down before you scare everyone with this nonsense." I looked around the room desperately. Nobody would meet my eyes except Chandler, who was watching me intently from across the room. "You have to believe me," I said, my voice dropping. "They're not just statues." Chandler stood up and walked over. "What exactly did you see?" he asked quietly. Rodriguez shot him an annoyed look, but Chandler ignored it. "Tell me exactly what happened," Chandler said. I took a deep breath. "We were on patrol. There was this old man statue that had changed position. Weber went up to it even though I told him not to. He touched it, and it grabbed him. His skin started turning gray from his hand up his arm. Then his whole body turned to stone in seconds. I shot at the statue, but bullets just chipped it. And the other statues, they were moving too. Just slightly, but they were turning toward us." Chandler's expression grew more serious with each word. He didn't look like he thought I was crazy. He looked afraid. "You believe me, don't you?" I asked him. He nodded slowly. "I've been counting them too. There's more every day." I sat in the corner of the barracks, back against the wall, watching everyone sleep. The room was filled with the sounds of snoring and the occasional creak of metal bunks. Brett Chandler was next to me, our voices barely above a whisper. "So you believe me?" I asked him. Brett nodded. "Yeah, I've been counting them too. There were 21 when we got here. Now there's what, 25? 26? 26, I confirmed. And they're not just appearing. They're moving when we're not looking." Rodriguez had taken our weapons after my freakout about Weber. Called it a precautionary measure until I got my head straight. Nobody except Brett seemed to care that Weber was gone. Turned to stone right in front of me. Rodriguez told everyone I was suffering from stress and lack of sleep. "We need to get out of here," Brett said. "Tonight." "How?" Rodriguez took our rifles. Brett glanced around the room. "We don't need rifles. We need to get back to base and report what's happening. Tell them about Banks, Cross, and Weber. They'll think we're crazy. Maybe, but we'll be alive." I rubbed my face. My eyes felt like sandpaper from staying up all night. "Okay, when?" "Dawn," Brett said. "Everyone's still asleep. Rodriguez won't start roll call until 6. We worked out the details. Just essential supplies, water, some rations, first aid kit. The nearest outpost was about 15 miles south. If we moved fast, we could make it by nightfall. "Get some rest," Brett told me. "I'll stay up and wake you before dawn." I couldn't sleep, just stared out the window at the village. Around 3 in the morning, fog started rolling in from the water. Thick, gray mist that swallowed up buildings and streets. That's when I saw them. Shadows moving between houses. Not people. Different. The shapes were too stiff, too deliberate in their movements. I nudged Brett. "Look." He joined me at the window. We watched as one of the figures stepped into a patch of moonlight. It was the statue of the fisherman, the one that had been in the square since we arrived. Only now it was 50 yards from where it should have been. "Jesus," Brett whispered. "They're moving. We need to go, now." We grabbed our pre-packed rucksacks from under our bunks. I'd stuffed mine with a canteen, 3 MREs, a flashlight, and a compass. Brett had done the same, plus he'd managed to get his hands on a pistol. "Where'd you get that?" I whispered. "Supply closet. Only had 6 rounds, though." We moved quietly to the door. Nobody stirred. The barracks remained filled with the sounds of sleep as we slipped out into the pre-dawn darkness. The fog was thicker outside, clinging to everything like wet cotton. We headed for the main road that led south out of the village. That's when we saw them. Dozens of statues lined both sides of the road. Where there had been maybe 3 or 4 yesterday, now there were at least 30, all facing inward, creating a gauntlet we'd have to walk through. "Fuck," I said. "They're blocking the road." Brett grabbed my arm. "We can't go that way." "There's no other way out." "Yes, there is. The coastal path." I'd forgotten about that. A narrow trail that fishermen used, running along the cliffs to the south. It would be dangerous in the fog, but better than facing whatever those statues were. We changed direction, moving carefully around the eastern edge of the village. Every shadow made me jump. Every sound had me spinning around. But we made it to the beginning of the path without encountering any statues. The trail was slippery from the fog. Rocks jutted out at odd angles, and the drop to our right plunged straight down to the ocean. We moved slowly, 1 foot in front of the other. "Watch your step," Brett said unnecessarily. About 100 yards along, I noticed something washing up on the narrow strip of beach below us. Gray chunks that looked like broken concrete. "Look at that," I said, pointing. Brett squinted down. "What is it?" "Stone fragments, like pieces of—" I didn't finish the sentence. We both knew what they looked like, pieces of the statues. We kept moving. The village gradually disappeared behind us in the fog. For the first time since Weber turned to stone, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe we'd make it. Maybe we'd get back to base and convince someone to take us seriously. We'd been walking for about an hour when I heard it. A scraping sound behind us, like stone dragging across stone. I turned around slowly, already knowing what I'd see. 3 statues were moving toward us on the narrow path. Not hiding anymore, not pretending to be inanimate. Their movements were jerky but purposeful. The lead one was the old man's statue that had been near the barracks. Behind it came a woman with a basket and a child holding a toy boat. "Brett," I said, my voice catching. He turned and saw them too. His face went white. "Run." I couldn't take my eyes off them. The old man's statue lifted its arm, reaching toward us with stone fingers. "Run!" Brett shouted again, pulling at my jacket. We turned and ran, stumbling along the coastal path as the scraping sounds grew louder behind us. "Run!" I shouted to Brett. "They're coming!" We took off down the coastal path, boots slipping on the wet rocks. The statues were behind us, actually moving now, not pretending to be still anymore. They scraped against the ground as they came after us, making this horrible grinding noise. "They're fast," Brett yelled over his shoulder. He wasn't wrong. The statues moved way quicker than you'd think something made of stone could move. Not like people running, more like they were sliding forward in jerky movements. The old man's statue was in front, about 30 yards behind us now. The path got narrower, with the ocean on one side and a steep cliff on the other. We had to slow down a bit. One wrong step, and we'd fall into the water. "Don't look back," Brett called out. "Just keep moving." I jumped from one rock to another. My foot landed on a patch of seaweed, and I went down hard, my knee smacking against stone. Pain shot up my leg. "Jordan." Brett turned back. "I'm okay." I scrambled up, ignoring the blood soaking through my pants. The statues were gaining on us, maybe 20 yards back now. Brett helped me up, and we kept going. The path curved around a bunch of big rocks sticking out from the cliff face. Brett went first, disappearing around the bend. I heard him scream. When I got around the corner, I saw why. Another statue, a fisherman with a net, had been waiting there. It had Brett by the ankle. He was on the ground, trying to kick free with his other foot. "Help!" he shouted. I grabbed Brett under the arms and pulled as hard as I could. The statue didn't let go. Then I saw it, the gray color spreading up from where the statue touched him, starting at his ankle, moving up his leg. "Oh God, oh God," Brett was saying, his voice high and tight. "It's happening." The gray crept past his knee, turning his standard-issue pants to stone. I kept pulling, but it was like trying to move a car with my bare hands. Brett was getting heavier by the second. "My gun," Brett yelled. "In my pack." I fumbled with the zipper on his rucksack, trying to find the pistol while still holding on to him. By the time I got it out, the gray had reached his waist. His bottom half was completely stone. Brett's eyes were wide with terror. "Shoot it." I aimed at the statue's arm where it gripped Brett and fired twice. The bullets just chipped it, sending little pieces flying. Didn't do a damn thing to make it let go. The gray kept moving up Brett's chest. He grabbed my wrist, his fingers still flesh and warm. "Jordan, you gotta go, now. I can't leave you." I pulled harder, the gun forgotten in my hand. "Listen to me," Brett said, his voice getting strained as the stone crept up his neck. "You have to tell someone what happened here, about the statues, about all of us." I heard the scraping sounds getting closer. The other statues were almost to the bend. "They'll kill you too if you stay," Brett said. His face was the only part of him still normal now. "Go. Run. Tell someone." The stone reached his chin. His eyes locked on mine, terrified but determined. "Run," he whispered, and then his mouth froze, turned gray, and he was gone. Just another statue on the path. The other statues rounded the corner, 3 of them, moving like they had all the time in the world now. The old man, the woman with the basket, the kid with the toy boat, all coming for me. I backed up a few steps, then turned and ran. Left Brett there, turned to stone. Left the gun too, dropped it when I realized it wasn't gonna help. Just ran. I ran until my lungs felt like they were on fire, kept going even when I couldn't feel my legs anymore. The path started to curve inland and I followed it, hoping to circle back toward the outpost to the south. About a mile in, I spotted more statues up ahead, 2 of them, blocking the path. I cut away from the trail, pushing through some scrubby bushes and up a rocky slope. My hands got all cut up from grabbing at rocks and branches, but I didn't stop. I headed inland, away from the coast. The fog was thinning out as the day went on, but that just meant the statues could probably see better too. I stuck to areas with more cover, rocks, bushes, anything I could hide behind if I needed to. By late afternoon, my legs were so tired I could barely walk. I hadn't seen any statues for about an hour, but that didn't mean they weren't out there. I found a split in the hillside, kind of a narrow crack that opened into a small space big enough to sit in. I squeezed inside and collapsed, trying to catch my breath. The crack faced the village, giving me a view from above. I was maybe half a mile away, up on higher ground. As the sun started to go down, I could see the whole layout, the barracks, the docks, the little houses, and the statues. They were everywhere now. They weren't pretending anymore. They moved openly, patrolling between buildings. Some stood on rooftops looking out over the area. Others walked the perimeter of the village like guards. I counted at least 30 that I could see. Way more than the 26 from before. I wondered if the rest of the unit was gone now too. Rodriguez, Morales, all of them. Just more statues in that village. As I watched, I noticed something weird. They weren't just wandering around, they were searching, looking in buildings, checking behind things, moving in patterns, covering ground systematically. A chill ran through me when I realized what was happening. They were looking for me. I was the only one left who knew what they really were. The only one who'd seen what happened to Banks, Cross, Weber, and now Brett. And they weren't gonna stop until they found me too. I waited in that crack in the hillside until the sky started to lighten. My knee hurt like hell, and my hands were cut up from climbing. But I couldn't stay there forever. I needed supplies if I was going to make it to the Allied base. Food, water, better first aid stuff. Everything I needed was back at the barracks. I took a deep breath and crawled out of my hiding spot. The fog was still heavy, hanging over everything like a blanket. Good for me, I figured. Harder for them to see me. I worked my way down the hillside, staying low and moving slow. Every few steps I'd stop and listen. Nothing but the waves hitting the shore and the wind. When I got to the edge of the village, I froze. There were statues everywhere, not just the ones I remembered, dozens of new ones. Some wore pieces of military uniforms, a boot here, a torn jacket there. I saw one with dog tags hanging from its neck. These weren't just statues anymore. They were my unit. I ducked behind an old fishing shed and planned my route. The barracks were about 400 yards away, across the village square. Too open. I'd have to go around, building to building. I moved to the first house, pressed my back against the wall, and peeked around the corner. A statue of a woman with a basket stood about 20 feet away, facing the other direction. I held my breath and slipped past, heading for the next building. That's when it happened. The statue's head turned toward me. Not all the way. Just enough that I knew it had heard me. I froze, not even breathing. After what felt like forever, it turned back to its original position. They weren't pretending anymore. They knew I was here. I made it through 3 more buildings before I had to cross an open area. I waited, counting to 10, then sprinted across to a small storage shed. My boots made too much noise on the gravel. About halfway across, I heard it, the scraping sound of stone moving on stone. I dove behind the shed just as a statue rounded the corner. It was the fisherman, the one that got Weber. It stood there for a minute, looking around, then continued past me. I let out the breath I'd been holding. 4 more buildings, and I could see the barracks. No movement outside. I waited another minute, then made a run for it. I slipped in through the side door, the one that always squeaked. Inside, it was quiet. Too quiet. No snoring, no rustling of sleeping bags. I knew before I turned on my flashlight what I'd find. They were all there. Every single one of them. But they weren't sleeping anymore. Morales was frozen, sitting up in his bunk, mouth open like he was shouting. Johnson was by the door, looking like he'd been trying to get out. And Rodriguez, Sergeant Rodriguez, was mid-stride toward the door, his face twisted in anger or fear. I couldn't tell which. "Shit," I whispered. I was the only one left. I didn't have time to process it. I needed to get what I came for and get out. I grabbed my backpack from under my bunk and started filling it. 4 MREs from my footlocker, 3 water bottles, a first aid kit from the wall, my compass from my drawer. I was zipping up the bag when I heard it, the sound of stone scraping against wood, right outside the door. Then another scrape, and another. They were coming for me. I threw the backpack over my shoulder and looked for another way out. The front door was blocked. I could see shadows moving outside the frosted glass. The windows were too small. That left the back door, the one that led to the kitchen area. I ran for it, slipping between the rows of bunks. Behind me, the front door creaked open. I didn't look back. I hit the back door at a run, shouldering it open. Something cold brushed against my jacket. A stone hand, just missing my neck. I stumbled forward, catching myself before I fell. Outside, it was chaos. Statues were converging from all directions. The old woman with the basket, the children with the boat, the fishermen, all moving with that horrible scraping sound. I ran, straight south, toward the edge of the village. My only thought was to get beyond the perimeter, to reach the road that led to the Allied base 60 miles south. I was 20 yards from the edge when I saw it. The statues were moving into position along the village boundary, linking arms, forming a wall, trapping me inside. "No way," I said out loud. I was not going to die here. Not like this. I scanned the line and spotted a gap. 2 smaller statues, children I think, with about a foot of space between them. It was my only shot. I lowered my shoulder and charged. The statues tried to close the gap, their stone arms reaching for me. I felt cold fingers brush against my neck as I hit the space between them. For a second I thought I wasn't going to make it. Then I was through, tumbling down the hillside on the other side. I rolled about 20 feet before I could stop myself, the backpack cushioning some of the fall. When I looked back, what I saw made my blood run cold. The statues, all of them, were standing at the edge of the village. Dozens of them lined up, watching me. But none of them crossed the boundary. It was like they couldn't, or wouldn't, leave the village limits. I got to my feet, wincing at the pain in my knee. I didn't understand why they stopped, but I wasn't sticking around to find out. I turned and started walking south, away from the village and the statues that used to be my friends. I don't remember much of those 3 days, just walking, one foot in front of the other, south, always south. My knee swelled up bad. The cold numbed it some, but every step still hurt like hell. I rationed the food and water, but it wasn't enough. By the second night, I was eating snow and my lips were cracked and bleeding. The wind never stopped, cut right through my jacket. My hands went numb first, then my feet. I knew that was bad, frostbite coming, but I couldn't stop. Not with those things behind me. I slept in short bursts, 20 minutes here, 30 there, always jerking awake at every sound. The 3rd day was the worst. I fell more than I walked, started seeing things that weren't there, hearing voices. When I finally saw the Allied base, I thought it was another hallucination. Chain link fence, guard towers, normal people moving around. I stumbled the last 100 yards and collapsed at the checkpoint. "Help," I said. That's all I managed before everything went dark. I woke up in the medical tent, an IV in my arm, blankets piled on me, a doctor checking my vitals. "Where am I?" My voice sounded strange, rough. "Allied Forward Operating Base Delta." The doctor shined a light in my eyes. "You've been out for 14 hours, lucky to be alive. Severe exposure, dehydration, early frostbite on 3 fingers and both ears." I tried to sit up. "I need to talk to someone. My unit." "Whoa, easy." He pushed me back down. "Commander Jeffries wants to debrief you when you're stable. Another hour or 2. I must have fallen asleep again because next thing I knew, a different guy was standing over me. Tall, buzz-cut, commander's insignia. "Private Graham?" He pulled up a chair. "I'm Commander Jeffries. Think you can tell me what happened to your unit?" I nodded and tried to sit up. My whole body ached. "The statues," I said. "They're alive." His face stayed neutral, but his eyes changed. That look people get when they think you're crazy. "Start from the beginning," he said. "You were stationed in the fishing village for 3 weeks. Everything was fine at first. Then people started disappearing. Banks first, then Cross, Weber." I told him everything. The statues moving, the gray spreading when they touched you, Brett turning to stone right in front of me, the whole village hunting me. I watched his face the whole time. He didn't believe me. Not really. But something in my eyes must have got to him. Fear, probably. The kind you can't fake. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. Then he nodded once. "We'll send a recon plane, get some aerial shots of the village." He stood up. "Rest now. We'll talk again after we have something." The next day they showed me the photos. Black and white shots taken from above, clear enough to see what I already knew. The village was full of statues, dozens of them, some in groups, some alone. 12 wore American uniforms and were positioned throughout the town. Standing guard, waiting. "This matches your description," Jeffries said, spreading the photos on the table beside my bed. "But it doesn't prove they're what you say they are. You think I'm making this up?" My voice cracked. "Those are my friends. That's Sergeant Rodriguez by the barracks entrance. That's Morales near the docks." Jeffries exchanged looks with the intelligence officer beside him. "We need to go back," I said. "I need to show you." "You're not going anywhere for at least 48 hours, the doctor cut in. "Your body temperature is still below normal, and those fingers need monitoring." For the next 2 days, I laid in that bed while intelligence officers came in shifts. Same questions over and over, different angles, trying to catch me in a lie or inconsistency. I stuck to what happened. No point making shit up. The truth was bad enough. On the 3rd day, Jeffries came back. "We're sending a team to verify your account. Heavy weapons, full protective gear. You'll guide them, but only to the perimeter. No one enters the village. Understood?" I nodded. "When?" 2 hours. The ride back was the worst part. Every mile closer, my chest got tighter, like something was squeezing me from the inside. The team was quiet. 6 guys in tactical gear, assault rifles, even a flamethrower. They'd been briefed, but didn't believe. I could tell by how they looked at me. We stopped about a 1/4 mile from the village, close enough to see it clearly through binoculars, but far enough to run if needed. "There," I pointed. "That's the main entrance. And there, see those statues by the road? They weren't there before. They've spread out." The team leader, Sergeant Miller, handed me binoculars. "Show me which ones were your unit." I took a deep breath and raised the binoculars. My hands shook a little. Seeing them again was worse than I expected. There's Sergeant Rodriguez, by the barracks door, standing like he's about to give orders. I moved the binoculars slowly. That's Morales, near the well. Johnson's by the east fence. And that's Brett, on the coastal path where I last saw him. Miller nodded and had his photographer take high-resolution shots of each statue I identified. They documented everything, positions, formations, the way some seemed to be patrolling. They're organized, Miller said, more to himself than to me. Tactical positions. They're hunting, I corrected him, looking for anyone else to add to their collection. One of the team members moved forward for a better angle. I grabbed his arm. Don't get any closer, and whatever you do, don't touch them, not even with a stick or your boot, nothing. He gave me a look but stepped back. Miller ordered everyone to maintain distance. What happens if we shoot them? Another soldier asked. Bullets just chip the stone. I tried. I pointed to my backpack. I've got pieces in there. Broke off when I shot at the one that got Brett. Miller took the samples and sealed them in plastic bags. For almost an hour, we documented everything from a safe distance. No one in the village moved while we watched, but I could feel them waiting, patient. They had all the time in the world. All right, we've got what we need, Miller finally said. Let's move out. The ride back was quiet. Nobody talked much. Even the skeptics weren't smirking anymore. I caught Miller writing in his report. Unit personnel missing in action. Unusual circumstances requiring further investigation. That night at the base, Commander Jeffries called me to his office. The samples were being sent to a lab. The photos were already headed up the chain of command. They want you to stay here until we figure this out, he said. Intelligence has more questions. I shook my head. I'm not staying anywhere near that village. Private, this isn't... Request immediate transfer, sir. My voice was steady now, determined. Anywhere else. Different country, different front, doesn't matter. Just not Iceland. Jeffries studied me for a long moment. You really believe they're coming for you, don't you? I know they are. I'm the only one who got away. I leaned forward. And I'm the only one who can tell people what they really are. He sighed and pulled out a form. I'll see what I can do. As we drove away from the village that last time, I watched through the rear window until it disappeared around a bend. Just before it vanished, I saw them. All the statues had turned. Every stone face was pointed our way, watching us leave, watching me. I don't know if they can leave that village. I hope not. But I'm not taking any chances. I'll go wherever they send me, as long as it's far from here. Far from those stone sentinels that used to be my friends.